Let's also focus on the AMFI data, which has been announced for the month of November. It shows that the equity inflows are strengthened after the festive break, with active equity schemes seeing 29,911 crore rupees. R. Sivakumar, who's the head of product and strategy at Axis Mutual Fund, now joins us. Sivakumar, always a pleasure to speak to you on NDTV Profit. Your first take, we have made a comeback after a slight bit of dip in the month of October, which could be because of festive, and also a lot of big bang IPOs had really come up in the market. But SIPs also remain at the highest point at record levels. Your assessment of these figures?
First of all, good afternoon, and it's always nice to be here. There is, I think, some very interesting cuts to the data that we see. The headline is very important, that we are nearly at 30,000 crores of net sales in equities. That's clawing up some decent ground from some relatively poor months that we've seen in the last few months. Relatively, I should say, because it's still strong flows that we've seen. Underneath, we also see some changes. I think the fact that we are seeing some flows reducing into certain categories like flexi cap, but increasing in certain categories like large and mid cap, etc., also suggests that investors are maybe slightly changing their allocation towards larger cap categories compared to maybe smaller capitalization. But these are small things, small changes. The other very interesting take, of course, is going back to the festive, is the fact that during the festive season, we saw significant flows into gold ETFs. That seems to have moderated. Still net inflows, but certainly moderated from last.
That's right. But Sivakumar, the total inflows dropped due to outflows also for the month of November coming in from the fixed income funds. And they are now at 32,755 crores versus 2.16 lakh crore rupees in October. What's your assessment on these figures?
It's very important to remember that there is a lot of intra-quarter movements which happens in fixed income. The first month of every quarter is always very strong, and the third month of every quarter is always weak. The mid-month is kind of plus or minus depending on other factors such as it tends to fluctuate, but not huge. And this time it's just, again, I don't think there's too much to read over there. We must remember also that the RBI governor has stepped up the liquidity infusion through swaps and almost. So I do expect to see sustained inflows into fixed income in the coming months. But it's very, very difficult to read into month-on-month numbers in fixed.
Right. So you're saying sustained inflows when it comes to fixed income. But Sivakumar, we can't let you go without asking about the market with the kind of strong performance and the recovery that it has staged today. Of course, there is volatility, but what's your near-term view on the markets?
Overall, we're quite constructive. I think the reality is that overall company profits or growth numbers continue to sustain. And I think that underpins the overall nature. Now, of course, over the last year, we saw a significant amount of selling by foreign investors. We've seen the domestic investors being big buyers. That obviously has kept the markets somewhat on tenterhooks. I think the reality over the next few months, as some of those will get reset. At the end of the year, typically there's always a reset. Global investors will look at which countries have underperformed, outperformed, where relative valuations have gone. And India's relative valuation has significantly improved compared to EM peers or even compared to developed markets. So I think in the new year, we will see foreigners come back, and that should portend good news from an equity market perspective. The most important thing is that we need to continue to see earnings growth. And as long as that's the case, we are set up for pretty good times in equities.
Right. As you speak, Sivakumar, there are two counters which are really making a huge, comeback. Kotak Mahindra Bank gaining in strength. Eternal also is another counter which is really gaining over 2% in trade. So huge, momentum in the market at the middle of the day. Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, completely out of time on this edition of Markets at 12.